Thank goodness for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah, no kidding.
I am as grateful as I have ever been. How good does that fucking thumbnail look, by the way?
Really fucking sharp.
Holy shit. The too small pose was so good. As a cutout.
I need to stop myself from going on Google.
This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland one of the lane, locked to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. The Cleveland Cavaliers came away with not one, but two signature wins over the weekend. A 3-0 start since the All-Star break, since we last recorded. Dominant win over the New York Knicks and an impressive win over the Memphis Grizzlies. Joining me today to discuss it all is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
It's kind of nice to get, two flavors of win. You have the absolute ass kicking against the Knicks on Friday. And then you get where you kind of just show your class, and then you show your culture on Sunday in a game against the Grizzlies when you're down your point guard and you can't hit the broadside of a barn with your jump shots, and you still put up 129 and just process your way to a win. So, I think like you kind of just get whatever you wanted to learn about the Cavs, in these two games, I do feel like you did kind of get to learn it.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree with that. And I think the important thing is, I believe both of these games were flexed into the national TV kind of spotlight, right? Like with how well the Cavs have been playing, they are getting more and more of these showcase games. in the second half of the season, in this closing stretch. And for people that may have not been following as closely, that maybe the last time that they tuned into a Cavs game was the loss in OKC, or just checking out the NBA post All-Star break for the first time, which, a lot of casual fans do. This was like a showcase opportunity for them to show what they're made of. Maybe people have still been dealing with some of the scars of that playoff series 2 years ago with the Knicks. I thought it was really interesting that Donovan talked about that and how, they almost appreciate that experience and have benefited from it. But I think for the Cavs to come out and show how good they've been all season against, the second best team in the Eastern Conference, or the second best team in the Western Conference and the third best team in the Eastern Conference, I thought it was really, really impressive. I thought the Cavs showed a lot of toughness. I thought there were elements within each of these games where the team of yesteryear probably would have lost some composure and maybe let go of the rope to some extent. I just think you're seeing more and more of the maturity of this team as the season has progressed.
Yeah, they're just kind of the most reliable thing in sports right now at the end of the day, I mean, they're 47-10. Oh my gosh. If you're on a franchise win record tracker, as I am, pretty much every game right now, the 08-09 Cavaliers were 45-12 at the 57 game mark. So the Cavs are now 2 losses ahead of that pace right now. And man, it's just, again, we've said it all year, but you just never know where it's going to come from. Mm-hmm. And this game, I think that Grizzlies game was kind of the best example of at least 2 of your stars are going to show up in an insane way. Mobley and Donovan, and at least one of your role players is going to have a killer game. And in this case, it was Ty Jerome who went bananas, Justin. I mean, what do you have, 15, 16 points in the fourth quarter?
Yeah.
Completely took over the game, allowed Donovan to sit the first 5 to 6 minutes of the fourth quarter, which was important because he still played 35 last night, and he would have, if Ty wasn't going nuts and Kenny had to break rotations and get him back in early, then there would have been a world where he plays 40 minutes for one of the only times that they've done that all year on a 3 and 4 night stretch. Yeah. So I just thought it was really important for Ty to kind of go nuts the way he did. And he continues to be, I think, probably the most pleasant surprise maybe of my Cavs fandom. Has there been a season from any Cavs player that has been this good, this out of nowhere in your fandom?
No, and there's been players that I've been excited about that came in and missed their first year, right? Like I think back to Dylan Windler. I think back to, going all the way back to like guys like Sergei Karasev, who didn't miss his first year, but had a lot of injuries. But I was excited. It's a shooter for a team that needs shooting. Like I've talked myself into so many of these moves on the margins, and if he did this last year, it would be one of the most surprising things that I can recall within my Cavs fandom, even though we were both very high on him. But I think what makes it even more unique is the fact that he missed last season. Usually when something goes off the rails, it stays that way. Like there isn't the bounce back. There isn't the recovery, especially when you're talking about these little moves on the margins. So for Ty Jerome to step up and play as well as he has all season, I think has been, one of the most pleasant surprises. But I think the most surprising aspect of this is not only is he, on a night in, night out basis, giving them consistent bench play, really stepping up and in essence replacing what we had in Karis LeVert, since his departure here. Not only is he doing that, but if Donovan or Darius are out, all of a sudden we get this next gear.
Every time. It's not like you get it every blue moon when those guys are. Every single time one of those guards is out, he scores like 25 points. It's nuts, dude.
He's like that golden like fantasy handcuff backup running back that, you know, as soon as one of them, the starters out, you put him in. You don't even think about it because he's going to deliver in all those spots. And, you know, I've done that in fantasy basketball a few times this year because I of course, have Darius and Donovan on my team because I am that way. And, you know, as soon as one of them's out, I pick him up off waivers. He's always sitting there. I pick him up and I throw him into my lineup. And, you know, that saved me sometimes, but it's also helped save the Cavs. And he's been terrific.
Brother.
I think the confidence that he plays with, the edge that he plays with, that guy talks as much as anybody on the team. I think it's him and Max that probably lead the team in talking, especially now that George Niang isn't here anymore. I've just been so enamored with how he's played all season. And, you know, we talked about it when it came to team building, when we talked about the core being expensive and all the kind of fine line that they have to walk as a front office, they needed to hit some home runs on the margins. And Ty Jerome has absolutely been one of those home runs.
Brother, we went into this year wondering if he could be the backup point guard on a team that might not play a backup point guard. That was where we were at the beginning of the year. Is like, he might beat Craig out, and he still might not get to be in the rotation. Like, that's where we were. And he has, I think, been unquestionably their best non-core 4 player this year. He is averaging 22, 6, 5, and 2 steals for 36, while basically just about splashing a 50, 40, 90 from an efficiency perspective. And, you know, Donovan, I think, said it, where it's like at the beginning of the year, you're kind of waiting for there to be the drop off, but it's like, this is just kind of who he's going to be, at least for this season, you know? And I think I'd be more surprised if he fell off than if he maintained this play at this point. And I think you hit the nail on the head. And part of what makes the DeAndre Hunter trade as good as it is really what you traded was Karras and Niang for DeAndre Hunter and guaranteed rotational minutes for Ty Jerome. And that's part of the depth play of the team, where you, like, it was just going to be, because Karras is a good ball handler and he is a good creator. He's a good positional defender, and he was going to earn minutes. He deserved minutes. And naturally, those two were just going to be kind of at odds with each other in the rotation and kind of inherently be stealing minutes, because, as we've said a lot, minutes is a zero-sum game at the end of the day. And it's just cleared the runway. And it is such a game changer for this team, dude.
Like, when you look at it, DeAndre Hunter is currently playing 3 minutes a game more than George Niang did when he was with the Cavs. Like, that's functionally what it's been. It's been Ty Jerome that has replaced the Karis LeVert role, right? And you know, we've absorbed some of that too. I think, you know, Max is getting some minutes. Okoro's getting minutes, particularly now that we're fully healthy. Dean Wade is getting some time. So obviously George's minutes were inflated a bit because of availability, but it just leaves you with this really rock solid rotation. Like, even on a night where Darius was out of the lineup, you felt really good about the depth that the Cavs had, right? You had Max Strus contributing. You had DeAndre Hunter stepping up. Ty Jerome was stepping up. I thought Isaac Okoro gave them good minutes. Sam Merrill and Dean Wade weren't shooting well, but they contributed in other ways. Dean had some fantastic defensive possessions. Like, it's a rock solid deep rotation even after that trade. And I think when you can do a consolidation trade
and not lose any depth, because you trust the guys that you've developed internally to step up, I think that's so important. And I think it was important when we talked about, you know, the ability to move on from Karis LeVert after everything that he gave them and how important he was, particularly when the guards would go down. But I think part of that calculus was still, hey, Craig Porter Jr. is looking really good. Like, those minutes he played against the Knicks, that jump shot is coming along. He's looking better and better. And that's, you know, that's one of those swing skill sets, right? Like, I think Craig in a lot of ways reminds me of what we love about Luke Travers, where, oh my God, the rebounding, like the athleticism, the feel for the game, the intelligence, the maturity he plays with.
just needs that 3-point shot to come along in order for it to all kind of get unlocked. Once again, it looks like one of those success stories where he's knocking those shots down with more consistency. So I think the confidence that they have in their player development has really empowered them. And, to bring it back to Ty.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm not done talking about Ty. He's been so good, and I think he needs like the first 10, 12 minutes of this podcast.
I won't go that far because I got someone I want to rant about on this podcast.
I know.
So
we will
get there.
We got a lot to cover.
But I do think an important thing has also been availability.
Yes.
That hasn't been a consistent thing with him throughout his career. If you look at the stats, what he's doing this season is not dissimilar to his first year in Oklahoma City. The biggest difference is his efficiency on, those 2-point shots, the little floaters that, he has just absolutely mastered. But he was shooting just as well from 3 on, in fact, higher volume. He was scoring just as many points per game. I'm sure there weren't the same high watermarks. Forgive me, I don't remember a lot about OKC in that weird after the bubble season. But he's done this before, but for him to do it now over 53 games instead of the 33 he played in that year, for him to have these, for him to be as reliable as he has been when they really need him to step up, it's just been an incredibly impressive season from him.
Yeah, you mentioned the health, and he mentions the health. He got it. It's so funny because people want to kind of tease out the reason why, and he's been so steadfast and be I just didn't get to play this way, and I wasn't healthy. I wasn't unlocked to play this kind of basketball. This isn't a dude who just needed someone to tell him he was great, and now he gets to be good. He's just yeah, I was great the whole time, and my body wasn't cooperative, and I was playing as a role player on some teams. I pulled up the numbers because he mentioned that he's already hit his career high for games played in a season.
Yeah.
In his post-game availability last night. I pulled up, he's played 3,763 minutes in his 6-year career. 1,015 of those are just this year. So,
wow.
He's just, and he's earning his way into the court, obviously, but also his body's just been cooperative. And when you have that combination and you've got the size and you've got the complementary skill set where he can run point guard for this team and he can play the 2 guard next to Darius, or he can play the one next to Donovan, or he can be the only ball handler on the floor. His positional versatility and ability to play in any lineup Kenny plays him in has just been so crucial. And you just can't help but root for the guy. I mean, again, I really don't think I've been this floored by in this taken aback by a player. This just doesn't happen. Guys who are journeyman role players like this, who, are not it's not like he was considered this unpolished project coming out of the draft. He was an old rookie, he was a 3-4 year player at Virginia, and was supposed to be a guy who was just a high floor role guy at best. He is raising the ceiling of this team on a game to game basis, and you just got to be so appreciative that one, of Ty for doing the work, also of Kobe Altman in the front office for finding the guy and locking him in. And then also just, we got to thank our lucky stars that it's playing out this way, brother.
Yeah, it's not often that us as 2 self-admitted Cavs homers are high on a player coming in and then blown away by what they actually produce, right? That doesn't happen too often, and he's just been phenomenal. I think one of the biggest things too, and one of the advantages of having him play at such a high level, is we have seen over the last couple of years, even when you're playing lineups that are spacing challenge, right? Where you're playing 2 bigs, and let's say back when you had Isaac Okoro when he wasn't as established as a shooter, or Lamar Stevens playing minutes there, you were able to still get a lot of functional offense off of the strength of having 2 dynamic guards that you had to account for. Now you have it so that when one of Darius or Donovan comes off the court, Ty Jerome comes in, he's a dynamic guard, and not only that, now you have 2-way wings. Now you have guys that can space the floor, that are threats that have to be accounted for. Now you have more mature big men in both Evan Mobley and Jared Allen who are really expanded their games as playmakers, their understanding of the game, their feel as playmakers. So when you have 2 guards that you have to account for on that level, it's going to lead to these breakdowns that drive opposing fan bases nuts. Like when you look at Knicks Twitter during the last, like that game on Friday, they're losing their minds at what Ty Jerome's doing. And when the Knicks try to scramble to account for him, open opportunity for Donovan, open dunks, right? You cheat on the guards, and all of a sudden Max Strus is running an incredibly effective side pick and roll with Evan Mobley or Jared Allen and hitting them on the numbers, right? Like there is just so much more dynamic play from this team, and they needed to hit on a lot of these role guys, and it seems like here's the most important thing. Let's summarize it all with this. Going into the playoffs, I feel 100% confident that we have enough to properly evaluate how the core is going to play into that setting. The supporting cast is not going to be an issue. They are going to be taken as far as Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, and Jared Allen take them. And I think that that's the most important thing. And that's been something that we haven't confidently been able to say the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. And, I think and we haven't talked about Javonte Green yet because he wasn't officially signed. So I think we'll have to sneak that in somewhere in a very dense podcast.
Not only that,
episode.
it wasn't even out there when we did the last mailbag podcast.
And, but like, I think after that went, got reported, I think you said either in our Discord or group chat or something like that, you were like, well, Kobe did his job. Like they've got what they need. And I think you're 100% right. They've got high volume role players. They've got role players who can mesh. They've got role players who can defend. They've got role players who can play in multiple styles. Like the roster just up and down is really, really dynamic. And like when you were talking about, what Ty unlocks in that Knicks matchup, I was thinking that, the whole premise of this team is that you always have one, dynamic elite ball handler on the floor with one elite rim running, rim protecting big on the floor at all times. What Ty has really done at the end of the day is he's made it so you have two dynamic ball handlers on the floor at all times, because you're always going to be playing with a Darius, a Donovan, or a Ty, and most of the time you're gonna have at least two of those guys on the floor. Can
I take that a step further?
Of course,
because now I think I'm comfortable saying that we have two dynamic front court players on the court at all times, because you're likely playing, when you're staggering those bigs, you likely have DeAndre Hunter out there as well. And that's someone that was averaging 19 points per game this season on great efficiency.
This team is dope.
Yeah.
They are so good. It's no wonder
you seriously cannot ask more. You could not have asked more from the front office. Like showing patience, but then not only do they get to, kind of strut their stuff probably, like around All-Star Weekend, I don't know if Kobe even attended, but if he's walking around other general managers and whatnot, I think he can puff out his chest a little bit. Like, not only was I right about being patient and keeping the core together through the summer, I didn't get complacent with that. I didn't rest on my laurels of, my gamble paid off. We're the best team in the league, or we had the best record in the league. Not being complacent with that, but still going out, being aggressive, going and getting DeAndre Hunter, and then having Ty Jerome step up in this way. I just think it's exactly what you need. It's exactly what you need going into this postseason, and I just do not feel like that's going to be the storyline. Like, this goes beyond pumpkin insurance. Like, this is I don't know what you want to use for that analogy, but they've got the depth they need. Yeah,
it's just at the end of the day, like the sandbox is there for these guys to play in. It's built. You've got all the toys, all the tools, and it's so encouraging to see. I think this front office just needs endless credit, because the balance between self-confidence and hubris kind of sits at a razor's edge.
Mm-hmm.
And
my ears are burning. Continue.
And sorry, I wasn't ready for that one. And there were times where you worried almost, where okay, this front office really, really believes in what they've built, and they've had some real hits to that on the journey. That Knicks series is a big hit. The entirety of last regular season was kind of was a hit where things weren't meshing, things weren't the sum of their parts. So when you're that confident and then you start getting the good results in the wake of that,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable that they didn't just go, well, I was right last time, so why would I change it now? You know?
Yep.
So like that ability to hang out on that knife's edge, which is where the best executives and the best organizations live, is such a testament. It's something I didn't know if we would ever have, because most organizations don't get to have this. And again, you just have to give Kobe, Mike Gansey, that front office, their flowers. Clearly, it's an environment where having an opinion matters, having a real point of view matters, but where that point of view can get challenged. And you can you can really see how that filters all the way down to the coaching staff, the kind of team that Kenny's running, where he's telling stories about how he didn't want to start Jalen Tyson and Damari Carroll goes and talks him into it. Like all these little pieces of evidence that show, hey, we believe in something, but we're not getting too high on our own opinions. We are ready to be challenged, and in everything that we believe has to be deeply defended and deeply validated, or it's not going to work. And again, just what a masterclass on the road to building a team this good.
Yeah, I think it's so important, and it really goes to show, right? Like, we see what we see in 48 minutes, right? What's on the court, what the kind of relationships are, the body chemistry, all that kind of stuff. That's apparent. Like, we can see that on a consistent basis. But I think those types of relationships, right, having your finger on the pulse with the locker room, knowing what types of shakeups the locker room can handle, what shakeups are going to be a positive for the locker room, right? Like when you look back at the coaching change, JB did a great job, but it was clearly time to make an adjustment there. Karis LeVert had really contributed, had really brought a lot to the locker room, but it was the right time, and they had the trust in the locker room to be able to kind of step up and address that. I think, and that Damari Carroll example, I think that's another great example. Like, it's all these kind of relationships and things you don't see, that aren't apparent, that are working in the background, always providing support, just like Zoom AI Companion. Because only you can do your best work, Carter. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion. Carter, you took me on a Ty Jerome ride here. I think he absolutely deserved it. I am enamored with Ty Jerome, but I want to talk about Evan Mobley, because that man looked like one of the best players on the planet these last two games. He put up 25, 13, and 8 versus Memphis with 3 blocks, 21, 8, and 4 versus New York, which is impressive. More impressive when you realize he did it in 24 minutes. This guy is one of the best two-way players in basketball. His off-the-dribble game has expanded. He is looking so confident. He was taking it to one of the best defenders on the planet in Jaren Jackson Jr. And I think when we talk about the differences between 2 years ago against the Knicks and where the team is at now, mentioning the changes in the supporting cast, coaching, all that kind of stuff is so important. But I think the biggest swing factor, which we said at the time, was going to be the growth of Evan Mobley. And this is no longer what we saw post All-Star break of that season, where he was more productive. He was getting around 18 and 10. This is someone that can bend defenses that people panic, because he is so dominant on both ends of the court. Holy hell, it was fun to watch.
He is really, I feel like, even taken another leap as a creator mid-season from what he was at the beginning of the year. I mean, we talk about how at the front end of the year, he's taken it to the Charlottes of the world and, the Washingtons of the world. And you wait to see, like, okay, that's good. I'm glad to see it. But, like, he can't turtle up against the best defenses in the league when he goes up against other elite personnel. At the end of the day, that's what elite offense is when you can beat elite defense with it. And, he has that first possession against Jaren where They're down Darius, so he's going to need to initiate. That's just the way, especially with that starting lineup with Okoro in there. You're going to need Mobley to initiate offense, so it's just not the Donovan Mitchell show, which, by the way, it was. But but not just later. The Donovan Mitchell show. So you need it, and he gets ripped on that first possession. And you go, and I won't lie, I go, this could be a hard game. This could be a hard game to get easy buckets. And then he just proceeds to decimate him the rest of the game. I mean, the Euro step, the inverted pick and rolls, the duck-ins right when he needs them. So much self-created offense, so much playmaking for others where he's beating Jaren to the point, like the whole thesis of Jaren Jackson Jr. for the Grizzlies is they don't have to help when he's guarding someone.
Yeah.
So if the fact that Evan is just spraying passes out, I know you have an unbelievable stat I wouldn't dare take from you from this one with regards to his playmaking, but the fact that he's able to destabilize Memphis's defense with, the current odds front runner for Defensive Player of the Year guarding him, hopefully not for long, is really special.
It is really special. And that stat you're referring to, 15 assist opportunities created by Mobley in that game. Second on the team was Donovan with 8. So, he is not only generating for himself against one of the best defenders in the league, he is generating for others. He was creating opportunities all over the board. And I think I'm really happy that you pointed out that turnover, because I didn't get to watch that game live. I had to watch it after. And I knew that he had a great game. And I smiled when I saw that turnover because I'm like, this is great. Because I already knew what his box score was. I watched the fourth quarter live. I was like, this is awesome. He is going to stick with it. And I think you even saw within this game, he took a lot of open threes. One of them, he had his foot on the line, unfortunately. He missed a bunch of them. But he didn't let that deter him. He's not being polite where, excuse me, I'm going to try to expand my game here for a possession or two. Let me experiment with a dribble. Let me experiment with a three. He's confident with what he's doing on the court, and he believes in the process. He is sticking to it, and he is playing his game. And I think we still need to see it against Boston. I want to see him have one of these games against Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford. We saw it against Horford in the playoffs. Porzingis has given him trouble. But I think it's encouraging that since he struggled there, we've seen him do it against a Rudy Gobert. We've seen him do it against Jaren Jackson Jr., who Kristaps Porzingis is a phenomenal defender. He is not as good as those two guys.
No.
I'm sorry. He's maybe a little larger, but he is not a better defender than those two guys. Whether he can get that to translate, whether he can keep himself, maintain that composure, attack and assert his will on the game, that's going to be really, really important to see. But what did we say? We only have one game left against Boston, but we do have a lot of these matchups where you're playing very, very good defensive teams and very, very good defensive players at that position. So for Evan Mobley to excel and to not just have a solid game against a good defender, but have an argument for being the best player on the court with his performance, I think is significant.
Yeah. And I think you mentioning the 3-point volume, I'll just actually take it a step further and say the field goal attempt volume. He took 20 shots. And how many times in the last 2 years would the Cavs be like down one of their core guys, especially one of their guards, and then you look at the end of the night and Evan has 16, 17 points on 9 or 10 field goal attempts. And it's like, okay, that's cool that you were efficient, but like, brother, we need you to take shots. We need you to have high attempt, high volume. We need to feel you in the offense especially on nights like this where Darius is out and, the engine to your offense isn't playing. You need to self-create offense. And like, what is better self-creation for a 7-foot power forward than 20 field goal attempts, 8 assists, 15 potential assists, and like an 8 3-point attempts. Like, that is self-creation in a way that I just don't know we would have seen a year or two ago.
It's what needs to happen for this offense to be playoff proof, because we have talked about this time and time again. You need to have counters for when teams hedge blitz and put pressure on your guards. You need to have that front court creation. And Evan Mobley stepping up in that way is important. I think having DeAndre Hunter is important. He is able to generate offense. I've been really impressed with his touch off of drives, some of the self-created buckets, the way he's able to rise up over defenders and
an important rebounding game for him, by the way. I know that's not what we're talking about, but it was nice to see.
You're absolutely correct. Like I thought, he stepped up in a big way and was a star in his role. And that's exactly what you need. So I just feel more confident about the ability of this offense to translate to the playoffs. But man, Evan Mobley, especially in a showcase game, national TV against Jaren Jackson Jr., who is going to be competing with for Defensive Player of the Year, I thought it was really, really significant. And I made this argument 2 years ago when I personally thought Evan Mobley should have won Defensive Player of the Year. But I think when you look at these two games from over the weekend, where Evan Mobley, massive performance in 24 minutes against the Knicks. Jaren Jackson Jr., 22 points in his 25 minutes against the Cavs. Very similar production. Know what the difference is, Carter? Jaren played 25 minutes because he had 5 fouls. Evan played 24 minutes because they blew the Knicks out. This is the thing. Evan Mobley's minutes, like when you look at their per 36 stats, Jaren really expanded his offensive game. Last year did him a lot of good. He's an improved player. He's a phenomenal player. But Evan Mobley can scale up his minutes and actually achieve those per 36 stats because he's not picking up fouls all the time. Not only that, they have very similar kind of impact on opponents' shooting when it comes to what they do defensively. Know what Evan does better? Ending those possessions after the shot has gone up, because he is a dramatically better rebounder than Jaren Jackson Jr. The Grizzlies are one of the worst rebounding teams in the league, and his rebound rate is not that dissimilar to someone like DeAndre Hunter, who we've talked about his rebounding at the small forward position. Like, I just think that Evan Mobley is a more complete defensive player. I think the ability to defend without fouling is so important, particularly when you're talking about, can the success of the regular season translate to the playoffs, where we need our best players to potentially play 36, 38 minutes a game? If you can't play that many minutes because you are taking yourself off the court with those fouls, that to me has to work against you. If you cannot end those possessions and the Cavs out-rebound you by 10, that has to count in these Defensive Player of the Year conversations. I think Jaren Jackson has, as I said, I think he's taken a step forward. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think he is a much, much more dynamic offensive player than what we saw 2 years ago. I think Evan Mobley is just a flat-out better player at this point.
He is, and I think there is a little bit of JJJ getting credit for his growth as a player, as in this, like it's, and you see that happen the other way too. I was listening to the Dunker Spots. I was hanging out in their playback room, and someone asked about Bam, why he's not in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation, and Nakai's kind of mentioned, like, I mean, he's been good there, but also like, he's just having a bad year overall, and it does drag you down narratively. It just does.
Yep.
And like, so even though most of Bam's struggles this year have been on offense, like, it does just kind of change the perception of you a little bit. And I do feel like that's happening with JJJ in the opposite way. By the way, just pulled up FanDuel just to check, and guess who is now tied for the best odds for Defensive Player of the Year? Your boy Evan Mobley. They're both plus 125. And by the way, I'm going to use this as an aside to say, this is why taking advantage of getting put on national TV really matters. You've got 5 straight national TV games, 6 out of 7. And and a lot of those were flexed games where, the leagues saw how good the Cavs were playing and put them in the spot. That's why it matters. And you cannot tell me that if that Memphis game was only on the regional networks, that line shifts that fast, Yeah. But when these guys are getting in this national showcase and showing out the way they have been these last couple of games, it just starts to push these narratives in their favor.
Yeah, and I thought that this was a big weekend for changing narratives overall for the Cavs. I thought what they did against the Knicks was significant.
Could be a huge week by Friday.
Absolutely, and bullets dodged. I will confess, I panicked when I saw Darius land on his face. When I saw, Jared Allen going for an MRI, all of that freaked me out because it brought me right back to after All-Star break in the past. Like, people have always talked about, the Cavs fall off after the All-Star break. Like, the play has fallen off. It has always been injuries. Like, when we were coming off the All-Star game in Cleveland, we lost Darius, we lost Karras, we lost Lowry, we lost Jarrett, we lost Evan, we lost Dean. All those guys were out, and that's why the tailspin happened. For Jared Allen to bang his finger on the rim and then miss the rest of the regular season and be impacted in the play-in game, like, all of that was fresh in my memory. So for Jared to come back, to not have it be anything too serious, I think you saw it maybe a little bit with his free throw shooting, but I thought he had a big impact on the game. I thought he played really, really well. For Darius, we'll see how long he's out. If he's not 100% for Boston, I'm going to find that interesting because you're likely going to be banged up in the playoffs. You're going to need to find ways to be productive in those spots. I think that we have more than enough to win. I think we've seen that in past games against Boston where someone's had a really, really bad game. We just might need and it's funny to say this against a team as good as Boston, but, we might just need a B game from Darius if we get a strong Evan and Darius and Donnie and Hunter steps up, right?
And
like,
boy, is Donovan in good form right now. Oh my word,
he's been phenomenal. So I'm really I'm hopeful that he doesn't miss too much time. I know the Cavs have been very cautious with how they've managed injuries and made sure that guys were 100%. It was nice to see him on the bench having some fun in the last game. I like the tracksuit look, but yeah, hopefully he's available for Boston. It's nice to get 2 days off prior to that game as well, but the Cavs did a phenomenal job managing a 3-4 as well. Sure, those last 2 games were at home, but I think particularly coming off some time off, I'm not surprised that they shot 27% from 3 and had some tired legs. I'm not surprised that Isaac Okoro and Dean Wade are a little tired, particularly Okoro, who played all those games. You're going to have some tired legs in those spots, but to go up against one of the best offensive teams in the league in Memphis and a very good defensive team as well, and to still put up that many points when you shoot 27% from 3 and 68% from the free throw line, if you're Memphis, you can't feel too good about what the Cavs did to your defense.
No, absolutely not, man. And like, what's so nice again, and we've talked about it a lot, but Donovan Mitchell just being the best break glass in case of emergency option in the league, that for a team that rarely has to break that glass, like, he was so crucial in this game. Like, they don't score 60 plus in the first half shooting the way they shot if Donovan isn't just carrying the offense and playing like a super duper star. He has just been on a tear, dude. I mean, the explosion has been top notch. Yet another monster dunk.
Yes, he did.
The jumper looks really, really pure. His catch and shoot just feels like he never misses when he gets a catch and shoot at this point. The connectiveness has been really, really great. The not just the passes leading to assists, but the hockey assists, the hit aheads. Man, that lob to Mobley against the Knicks in the first quarter.
Oh my God, that was beautiful.
Like, for a guy who says he's not that good at throwing lobs, that's one of the best trap lobs I've seen in a long time. That was unbelievable.
Remind me, because I can't remember if we've discussed this on the podcast. I've done a lot of damage to my brain over the years. Have we talked about kind of the variety of his playmaking this season? Because I really feel like even though last year was, that big kind of playmaking leap from him, I feel like his understanding of what the Cavs are running offensively and the types and the variety of passes that he's making are at the highest level. And I just think we are seeing the absolute best version of Donovan Mitchell, even if it's not readily apparent when you look at his season-long stats.
I think he's passing guys open. I think he is finding angles, and he's making passes I didn't see. So much of what I thought last year was kind of a brute force thing where, kind of like Westbrook playmaking, if I can be a little
finding the open man. Yeah.
Being a little reductive where he, would have, intense gravitational pull everyone would just kind of suck in towards the basket, and he would be able to kick it or make an interior pass that was there with an angle that he could see. He is making passes this year where I'm like, I didn't know you were gonna throw it there, and that is really, really special. And you're right, it's just not, and we did talk about this a little bit, how it hasn't really shown up in the playmaking metrics, but I just don't really care, and it's part of why I think the Cavs have just been so freaking elite with him and Evan on the floor, because both of their playmaking has been so good all year that those lineups are just kind of impossible at the end of the day. I mean, in the month of February, Justin, he's averaging 30 points, five rebounds, 6 assists per 36. I mean, and on very good efficiency, 49 from the field, 38 from 3 on 10 3-point attempts per 36 as well. Like, he is playing like a super duper star.
And I think what stands out to me too is I feel like he has good chemistry with everybody on the roster.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, I felt like sometimes there was almost like a learning curve for playing with guys. And some of that's probably a result of continuity. But I also just think everyone's being put in really good positions. Like I honestly think Isaac Okoro, since coming back, I know he's 2 of 8 from 3, but I felt his impact in these games. I'm really enjoying the minutes of him.
Roll attacks.
Really, generating some assist opportunities there. He's been attacking the glass at the type of rate that we want to see. The rebound percentage is up 3% since he's come back from the injury. I thought he had some really, really impactful defensive possessions, and possessions where he didn't get the rebound, but he's tipping at it and generates a second chance opportunity. The block he had on Desmond Bane, I thought was phenomenal. I believe that was with his left hand. He's just looked really good out there, and it's funny because I think in how he was used in the past, when you're sitting in the corner, whether or not you are playing well is based solely on whether or not you hit those shots. And I just feel like he's being used in more ways, and he's impacting the game. And it's not just about, okay, did the shots go down? And there were so many possessions where, little dribble handoffs with him and Donovan, where he's setting just these incredible screens that are really blowing guys up.
He had that great 2-man game in the corner with Mobley last night, where he ends up helping them force a switch. Mobley gets it, is able to attack Jaw on that switch, and feeds Jarrett, who's cutting baseline. Like, he's part of these connected plays, to your point.
Yeah, and, for him to come back into the lineup, and I think it really illustrates just how high level the feel is for Donovan right now. But like, him and Isaac Okoro have an effective 2-man game against a top 10 defense and one of the best teams in the league in Memphis. Like, I just think you're seeing it up and down the lineup where he has a perfect feel for where Dean wants the ball. He immediately has great chemistry with DeAndre Hunter. Like, you've had really nice possessions with those two. His chemistry with Mobley is great. His chemistry with Jared Allen has been so much better than it was in the past. Like, or actually the other way around. The chemistry with Mobley is better than it was in the past. Like, I just think that up and down the lineup, he just has such a high level understanding of where he needs to be, when he can be aggressive, how to get guys open, how guys are going to cut, how they're going to move. And I think this is what I was hoping for earlier in the season, where we were talking about, hey, there's a few possessions where Donovan is very clearly saying it's my turn, where the feel wasn't necessarily there. Like, it felt like everybody else was flowing, and then sometimes like Donovan was playing such unselfish team basketball that he's like, I got to get mine here. I got to get it once or twice. The reason why I felt it was so important to point it out is because what we have seen from Donovan throughout his Cavs tenure is that he has grown, he has improved, he has done all the things to become a better team player.
Like Tony Stark, he's always learning, Justin.
And I just had that high level of confidence that was going to come at some point. And not that we wouldn't have pointed it out if we didn't think it was going to turn around, but I think pointing out where there's opportunity for growth is so important, particularly when you're talking about a team whose path to a championship is largely going to be coming through internal development, or at least it has been to this point.
Yeah, and like your star player who's, in his late 20s at this point, like, is the guy who you want, like, who you're not counting on that development from, comparatively. And the fact that you're still getting that growth, again, just speaks to what I love so much about the game of basketball, that it's not about the bag. It's just not. It's about how you read the flow of the game, and how how you connect with your teammates, and when you decide to take over, when you decide to get your guys going, when you decide to to muster the strength for that extra burst on the rim attack, that on a night where your legs maybe don't all the way have it. Like, that's all the stuff I think Donovan's just getting better and better at. And there were times
I would like to see him attack the rim a little bit more. That's my one critique, is sometimes I feel like in some of these matchups, there's just so many good things that happen when he attacks the rim. I'd like to see it just a little bit more. But he's been so damn good. And,
here's the thing. I trust that he'll do it in the playoffs, because,
I do too.
Because that Boston series before he got hurt, it was just a parade to the rim.
Yeah.
And I really do trust that he is going to muster the energy to get there, especially when they're closing out hard on that jumper. He's been phenomenal, man. An absolute tone setter. And the fact that I'm not sure who's been better between him and Evan this month kind of tells you what kind of month the Cavs have had.
Yeah, they've been really, really damn good. And, his growth and his continuous improvement, even into kind of his late 20s here, it just gets me excited about what 23-year-old Evan Mobley
my God.
and newly 25-year-old Darius Garland are going to do as they continue to get better.
Fan me off.
Can I just a little brief rant about some of the cap dorks here that are worried about all the accolades that Evan Mobley is going to get? One, we've always said we are rooting for our guys to get those accolades. We trust the front office to be creative. They've also put the team together. I'm very content with this team staying together. But when it comes to Evan Mobley potentially getting all NBA, those kind of kickers in the contract and all that kind of stuff, we have two guys 25 and under that are probably deserving of all NBA spots. And the fact that only one of them has a chance to get that designated rookie max, we're already probably ahead of the game there. I'm very, very much rooting for Evan Mobley to get all the accolades he deserves. And I love that he's speaking out for himself too. Like he's puffing out his chest a little bit. He's talking, saying, hey, who do I think is going to be the best player in 5 years? Me or Wemby? Like, I love that from him. I love the assertiveness.
Prayers
and I
up
think
for Wendy, by the way. What a horrible, or Wemby, sorry, not Wendy. What a terrible thing and scary thing. And hope for the best for him, because that was a real gut punch as a hoops fan.
Yeah, you were one of the first people I thought about, because the last podcast we had done was you saying, the matchup I'm most looking forward to is the two against Wemby. And then that immediately came out. I felt for you, and I also felt for that guy that tweeted out an hour before that he had just put 10,000 on Wemby to win Defensive Player of the Year, just an hour before that news broke. So shouts out to him. But yeah, Evan Mobley taking the step forward that he has, I think, is the most important thing. And, it was really, really fun to see Knicks fans kind of reacting to, oh, this is Evan Mobley now? Because I think that more than anything is the biggest difference when you talk about what they're going to be able to do in a playoff series. Well, I should say, at least from a Cavs perspective, I think the biggest difference in that matchup is they took all their identity and traded away into Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns. And I just don't think, as good as Josh Hart is, and he's been having the best season of his career, and as good as Mitchell Robinson can be, I don't think that they alone can carry kind of that physicality mantle for the Knicks. Like, my goodness, man, like, that felt great. That was so much fun, because I messaged you before the game where I'm like, I really feel like the Cavs should get this one. I feel like this should be a comfortable win, even though the Knicks are really good. They haven't been good against the best teams in the league. They haven't been good against winning teams. And I really felt like if they went out and struggled, to score against a defense anchored by Cat, I was going to say it's a mental hurdle that they have to overcome rather than a roster issue. So for them to just be as surgical as they were, that just felt great.
It was really rewarding, and it was really fun. Hate listening to a bunch of Knicks podcasts afterwards, and you got
Let's
people.
play a fun game. What is your favorite comment that you heard from a Knicks podcaster after the game?
My favorite one was I was listening to the Knicks Film School Q&A. Or mailbag,
mine's
whatever.
going to come from that too.
And they asked him who was better, Hunter or Mikal Bridges.
You took mine.
It was like, and he had to earnestly be like, it's close. It's like they gave up 5 first-round picks.
Yeah, versus 3 seconds. Yeah, the comment of probably closer than we are comfortable admitting was just that was chef's kiss.
Yeah, I mean, I said it. Whatever. We're 55 minutes in. We can do a Knicks. We can make fun of the Knicks for a minute. I remember
we love you. We love Knicks Film School. They do great work.
Yeah. Shouts Claudio and John Macri. I remember when they made that cat trade. I texted my buddy and I was like, "That looks like the team I make in 2K when I get bored and do 5 consecutive suggested trades." And then I load up. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like you just you kind of accidentally just nuke the identity of whatever team you were looking to play with in the first place. And then you just kind of have you trade for a bunch of guys. Oh, this is a 3-and-D guy who'd be great. And then you just have a bunch of guys who just don't play with a tremendous amount of force. And I mean, Josh Hart is the second best playmaker on that team, by a lot. And
Brunson had to work so hard that.
Yeah.
That was honestly one of the main things that jumped out. I expected us to be able to feast at the rim, and I expected our offense to be good. I was very impressed with how we played defensively. I thought the Cavs had a terrific effort on that end of the floor. And man, when the Knicks kept it close-ish in the first quarter, it was Brunson working his butt off to get those shots, hitting tough shots, hit one over Evan Mobley. He was seeing bodies all over the place. And you need playmaking. How many times have I said it this season? That was my lesson from the Celtics, is they had 5 guys that could create. And Cat, to his credit, has been very good this year. He's taken a step up as a creator and a playmaker.
He's still more of a play finisher, at the end of the
100%.
day. And
if he dribbles a second time, he is not going to give the ball up.
Yeah, he's going
if he
all
dribbles
the way to
once, if he dribbles once and help comes, he will make the right pass. If he is dribbled a second time, he is going to take it to the basket.
Yeah, I think that's after that Cavs game, before the Boston game. That same podcast was talking about how they were against the Cavs, Celtics, and Thunder. Their average score is 105, and their average opposing score is 126. And I'm just sitting here going, the 105 is the problem. The whole thesis of the team is that they got to be able to score, and they just don't. They don't have the ability to get easy looks against great teams. They have to work too hard for it. So anyway, there's Nick's Schadenfreude corner of the Chase Down podcast. We should probably get back on the Cavs. And by the way, for what it's worth, I have this concern with the Cavs against Boston, because I do feel like no one, even OKC, no one has consistently gotten the Cavs out of their offense like Boston has.
Yep, 100%. The biggest question with the Cavs is still, can this offense translate to the playoffs? The defense has held up. I think we have enough data points to indicate, yes, they are capable of doing this. But can you do it 4 times in a 7-game series against a team as good as Boston? That's going to be the question. The answer very well might be no. But if we get a competitive 7-game series where we do it sometimes, but there was just that one run that went the wrong way or whatever the case may be, that's something actionable. That's something that you can build off of, right? But how this offense translates to the playoffs is still the biggest question. That's still something that I really, really want to see. And I keep coming back to Evan Mobley. I think that's where it needs to come. I think he needs to be consistent. And that's a lot to ask of a 23-year-old. But I think we are seeing more and more that he is capable of doing that. And, one thing that we have seen as Cavs fans is sometimes a 23-year-old is able to step up and do things that you can't always expect of players, right? Like we have had some generational talent. We have been really, really damn lucky. Obviously, LeBron was phenomenal at 23 years old, but there were those questions with Kyrie. There were questions, early in the first round of the playoffs against Detroit. I remember Didier from, the Warriors beat that was talking about the lack of assists between Kyrie and LeBron. Sometimes he had those off games, but when it really counted, he found that consistency. He struggled games 1 and 2 against the Warriors. Big in the comeback. 23 years old. Evan Mobley, same damn age, and I would love to see this season end the same damn way.
You mentioned it's a lot to ask of Evan Mobley. Well, winning a title means we're gonna have to ask a lot of guys, and
yes.
Everyone. The way this team is built, everyone's gonna have to step up to the plate for 2 to 3 games at a time, and that is the road, is having enough guys playing great, just like Boston last year, having enough guys playing at a B+, A- level that you can take a C- game from one of your guys here and there, but it needs to be 80% of the roster playing well most of the way through.
Yep.
And I think this team can do it. And
some of it might be, Ty Jerome playing like Jason Terry in the finals and having one of those explosive quarters, or, we saw J.R. Smith, the Amon Shumpert 4-point play, right? Like those type of stuff matter so much. And I just have a high level of confidence that these guys are capable of doing it. Now, I agree with what we said on the last podcast, where I don't think there is any set of circumstances where you could say that the Cavs are going to be a favorite against Boston. And I do feel like this team has, at least like the way I think about things, it's a 3-year window, right? Like it's the length that we have at least Donovan under contract. Let's think within that window. But just because it's a 3-year window doesn't mean you're guaranteed to be in this position. Doesn't mean you're guaranteed to be healthy next year. Doesn't mean you can take this year for granted. If there is even an opportunity to go out and shock the world this year, you got to do everything in your power to maximize and capitalize on every single opportunity that you have.
Which, good thing this team is picking up more useful players on that note. They signed Javonte Green after he agreed to a buyout with the Pelicans. And what did you think of this move? I think both of us were kind of pining for a big man. We were looking for a 4-5, but also we weren't expecting a guy like Green to hit the market. What do you think?
I'm happy with it. Like this falls onto your pumpkin insurance category. And, he is a little undersized, 6'4", 6'5", but he's got a massive 7-foot wingspan. He is someone that plays much, much bigger than his size. And Chris Fedor on the Wine and Gold Talk podcast mentioned, from his understanding when he was talking to the Cavs, it was indicated to him, hey, it's not going to be guaranteed. We have a lot of depth, but you may have opportunities to get minutes. And I think the reason for that, positional versatility. I think that this is someone that can competently play with from 2 to 4. Like he can play as an undersized power forward. He's done it a good amount in his career because he is so physical and he is so long and plays so much bigger than his size. His defensive metrics are phenomenal. Go check out Dan Devine had a great post on that, where he is one of the best kind of perimeter defenders in the league from a metric standpoint. Having a guy like that can fill in, like if you are having an issue where Isaac gets banged up or Dean gets banged up or foul trouble with one of the role guys, the fact that you have some positional versatility coming in off the bench, someone that can fill in at a variety of those spots, I think is the most important thing. And that's what I wanted more than anything, right? Like I want a skill set more than I want an archetype. And I think that he fills that need.
Yeah, I think he has a couple things that are really going for him. I do think he is insulation in matchups where maybe Sam Merrill isn't a great matchup. Like we've talked a lot about how we don't love Sam against Boston. It's just not, It's not our favorite. And who knows, maybe it'll be Kenny's favorite and that's all that really matters. But, I think like that's a guy where you can go, hey, if you still want to play 8, 9, 10 guys, that you can do that. You can just, you can basically play him at the 3 or the 4 and downshift more Strus minutes at the 2, or or more Jerome minutes at the 2 because you got a big wing defender there. I think there is it's you made the pumpkin insurance joke earlier and then brought it up here. What's nice is what you really want is pumpkin insurance for your role players and have another option behind them, knowing that your starters, your top 5-6 guys you can really count on. You want like layers of insurance, and like he does provide that, like you mentioned, Isaac's jumper hasn't looked great since the shoulder injury. If you get into a playoff series and it's just not going well, but you need a stopper, maybe throw him in for a shift and see how it goes. I think he'll be a great innings eater for this team as they go through the rest of their regular season, where, we've talked about how we're super confident they're going to be the 1 seed at this point. At least I am. I think you are.
You can safely assume that, yes.
They're up 6 games on Boston as we speak right now. But we've talked about how OKC is in the middle of thumping Minnesota for the 2nd straight game, and they're going to have the same record. And if the Cavs want home court through the East, they're going to have to probably play out the season, try to win as many games, through into the finals. They're going to have to play out the season. They're going to have to win as many games as possible, and they're going to have to decide whether they want to balance, rest, recovery, and all that stuff with chasing those wins. So adding another, no doubt NBA player to your rotation makes it easier for you to do that, where you're not playing guys that you don't think can help you win in any game, even when you're down 2 or 3 rotation players.
Yeah, and the great thing about this season is they've been chasing wins without really stacking up those minutes. And once again, to give credit to Chris Fedor, because again, we are just fans with the podcast. We don't do the work of a beat reporter, so we're very grateful for people like Chris, people like Danny that are putting in the actual work, and we just get the benefit off it. But he did mention that one of the things that he expects Kenny to do, and one of the things Kenny has mentioned, is he's going to want to play them more minutes. He's going to want to give Donovan and Darius, 36 minutes in some of these games so that they can ramp up and get the conditioning to where it needs to be come playoffs. But if you're going to be doing that, my expectation is, hey, you're probably going to be doing that in the games against New York, against Boston and all that. And that's going to necessitate, hey, with that understanding, if we're playing a back-to-back, one of these games we're going deep. And if we lose that game because we're going deep, that's fine. But we trust our depth to step up. We trust Ty Jerome. We trust, going all the way down to Sam Merrill, Javonte Green, whomever coming in off the bench. They're going to need to do their part in order for us to get this wins record. And I think that's absolutely the right approach. But I do really like what he can bring.
I'm pretty confident in saying that Sam Merrill or Javonte Green would be the best 11th man in the league. No one else gets to play guys that deep. And
maybe OKC.
Yeah, that's
so many men.
That's probably fair. OKC is bananas, dude. I spent this entire season being a hating ass hater, and I'm running out of things to hate. They kill everyone. Dude. They're winning by their point differential is 13 points a game, and it keeps growing. Like, they haven't had really any one singular bad stretch of play this season. They've been nuts.
Yeah. Yep. And
crazy. How good you got to be markedly better, by the metrics, than this Cavs team right now. You know how good you have to be missing your second or third most important player for pretty much half the year and still be keeping pace with the Cavs. I don't know, man.
Really damn good.
I don't know, really man. It's so funny.
Well, some of that is, when you're playing in a conference where a team like Memphis is the 2 seed, it's going to make things just a little bit easier. But that's just my opinion. But to strengthen my point, looking at minutes per game for the Thunder, their 11th is AJ Mitchell and 12th is Kenrich Williams. Those guys are absolutely NBA players. So,
my God.
But hey, Sam Merrill, he's been playing great this year. I've been really happy with him. Really rounded out his game. So no slight there. But that's probably why Cavs and Thunder are at the top of the league, because they have the depth. They have all of these guys that can contribute. So it's been awesome. Going into the playoffs, I feel really, really comfortable. And I'm someone that's always been, I prefer 8. I like 8. I think you have to go at least 9.
I think 9 is the minimum that Kenny.
I think you got your core 4. The next 2, Max Strus and DeAndre Hunter. I think that they're kind of that cut above. Max continue to start. The starting lineup with Max Strus has a plus 34 net rating so far.
Everyone.
They are smoking everyone.
It's like Max was just like, yeah, no. I would like to stay the starter. Yeah, and they are killing everyone. By the way, I know we're going long on this podcast, but whatever. We didn't pod for like 11 days. Max playmaking against the Knicks, just punishing them for trying to hide Brunson on him, was so nice to see.
Yep. And we talked about how, it's going to be really tough for the Knicks to hide Brunson on the small forward, whether that's DeAndre Hunter and his ability to post him up, which you saw Brunson switching on and getting some larger players and getting attacked in that way. But also Max Strus, the connective playmaking, the feel he has with the starters has been phenomenal. So, you are correct to bring that up. I thought Max was awesome against the Knicks. I thought he was good against the Grizzlies as well. But yeah, I think him and DeAndre Hunter, that's 5 and 6. They have to play, a tier above more minutes than the rest of the group. But the next 3, man, I think you are going to need Isaac Okoro in the playoffs. I think Ty Jerome absolutely deserves those minutes. And I think Dean Wade has made a big impact. So I think those are my 9 that I feel super, super confident in. And then everybody else in my mind, it's a little bit of a specialist. Let's get a shooting punch. Let's get some defense from Javonte Green. Let's try to mix things up in that way. But I just feel really good about the depth of this team. And I feel really good about the depth of this team. And we haven't even talked about, kind of future projects in Jalen Tyson and Craig Porter Jr.
Yeah, I think that at this point, Kenny is going to play 9. But I think what it'll be is if 9 doesn't work,
that 8-9,
you just pare down. Or if a guy gets hurt or whatever it may be, you don't just replace, you pair and you start adding to the minutes load a little bit. But I would be stunned.
You play 9 because the top 9 are that strong, in my opinion.
Exactly. And I think that's what Kenny will do. But man, boy, does he have options.
I love options, and I love the Cavs playing this damn well. We will be podcasting Wednesday not after the Magic game because they play tomorrow, but we'll be recapping that and previewing the game against the Boston Celtics. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on the YouTube. Make sure you guys are liking and subscribing, clicking that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of the Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.